Hey everyone, it's Andy with Reverb, and today we're talking about choosing a fuzz pedal. With so much variety these days, it's often hard to know where to begin. With germanium, silicon, all these different options, such as oscillation and bias controls, is it going to agree with your pickups or your amplifiers? So today I'd like to help just by breaking fuzz into 4 different categories, and hopefully this will really narrow your search and help you go down the right fuzzy path. And with each category, I want to show you some sound examples, not just talk about them, and also give you some recommendations of some great fuzzes you can find right here on Reverb. So let's start with the first category, and that's classic fuzz. So what are classic fuzzes? Well, I'm sort of talking about pretty much the whole 60s fuzz explosion, and you have germanium transistors, and these are really, sort of wild and raw fuzz tones, like the Maestro fuzz tone, the one that sort of started it all back in 1965 with the song Satisfaction. They sort of marketed that fuzz to sound like a lot of, horns, trumpets and tubas and stuff, so that kind of gives you an idea of the frequency range we're talking about. Now I have a fuzz unit from Blammo Electronics, and this one's going after the Mark I tone bender, another 3 transistor fuzz. And I think this one really sort of is the epitome of 60s fuzz tones before we get into the fuzz faces and higher gain stuff. So check out the tone and specifically the decay of this fuzz tone. Besides this Blammo fuzz unit, there's some other great varieties right now on Reverb, lots from the British Pedal Company, all kinds of tone benders, zonk machines, which is a variant of the first tone bender, as well as, you could find the Fuzzrite from Catalinbread, which is a silicon fuzz, but it definitely has that mid-range buzz. And of course you can't forget octave pedals, which came out in this era, and that's analog octave, not like the modern, sort of pitch-shifting digital versions. These have some really interesting idiosyncrasies, and although they started off germanium, I think the one that everyone really thinks about when they talk about an Octavia is the silicon version. And the real key to getting the octave to jump out is to play on the neck pickup, kind of turn the gain down because it sort of gets blown out when you increase it. And just play above the 12th fret, and you really hear those sort of clangy ring mod textures almost jump out. You saw recently with the Jackson Audio Fuzz, there was an octave channel that you could blend with all those different fuzz modules or plugins. And I think, this really sums it up. If you have sort of a low gain octave, it's just going to sound great with any fuzz type, whether it's a tone bender, fuzz face, or big muff. And there's no real hard defining line with these categories, but I'm choosing to end the classic fuzz category with the fuzz face because it sort of bookends nicely those crude and sort of lower gain fuzzes from the very early 60s. And you have the fuzz face going from germanium to silicon and higher gain sounds. And so the next category is going to be higher gain fuzz. But I really want to just show you a sort of nice snapshot of a germanium fuzz face. It's going to have all that warmth on the top end you always hear about, and just exceptional cleanup with the guitar's volume knob. Now on to high gain fuzz pedals, and I think a no-brainer for a starting point is the Big Muff Pi from Electro Harmonics. You might have caught my video earlier on how to choose a Big Muff. There's so many different varieties, but I think they all share an underlying theme, and that's just a huge tone with lots of sustain and, a tone sweep for once, compared to those 60s fuzzes, which never had a tone control. And this comes from extra gain stages in the circuit, higher gain transistors that are silicon. And, a Big Muff of any kind is really going to get you lots of sustain, a chunky sound. But there's some other fuzzes to think about. And I think one is a tone bender above the Mark II version. And this is something that you saw from Color Sound during the mid to late 70s. And I have a variation of one of those, and that's from MXR in their Brown Acid Fuzz. Also in this high gain fuzz category, sort of hovering around the 70s, I definitely have to mention the Super Fuzz. And I've done a video on this on Reverb, so do check that one out. And along with the Super Fuzz, you have the Fox Tone Machine. Actually, the 3699 Fuzz from Danelectro, which you heard in the intro, is based on that Fox Tone Machine because it was designed by the same person. There's other fuzzes like the Fender Blender. These are octave up fuzz pedals with lots of gain, tons of transistors inside, and you don't really have to coax that upper octave out of your guitar by playing on a certain pickup setting. And for that reason, it's just a great all-around fuzz for classic sounds or even doom metal. It'll still come out if you play on a detuned humbucker-equipped guitar on the neck pickup. So that's a great place to look if you're into that kind of music. So what if you want to go one step further in terms of gain? Well, take a look at Wren and Cuff. They know their muff pedals, but they also know that you could get some great results by stacking other effects with a muff. The Garbage Face is a great collaboration between J Mascis and Wren and Cuff, and they've actually put a treble booster in front of a ram's head muff, and the results are just staggering. You not only get more sustain, but you could really push through and sort of overcome those scooped mids. So where do we go from here? We've got all the fuzz and gain we could ever need. Well, I think the next logical category to look at is modern fuzzes, and this might take a classic fuzz design and make it more reliable or just improve upon it by adding more features for you to tweak. Now, the earlier fuzzes were sort of biased in a way that gave them that gated quality. A modern fuzz that has that bias control can enable you to get those sounds, but also some more robust and smooth fuzz tones as well. Some of my favorites are the Keeley Fuzz Bender, which uses a hybrid of germanium and silicon transistors for better stability, along with its helpful bias control. You'll see a lot of bias controls on a lot of fuzzes from Solid Gold Effects, like the Breakdown Fuzz, which actually combines two tone benders in one. Here's a modern fuzz I'd like to share with you, and that's the Spiral Electric Effects Brute Fuzz. This one gives you that bias control, but also some other helpful features to increase the detail, as well as add some extra clipping options. The final fuzz category I want to mention are experimental fuzzes. These ones push the boundaries, in terms of the functionality they give you and the amount of sounds you could dial in. They go extreme with the bias controls. Sometimes they get, very starved and just limit the amount of decay to, milliseconds. And some of the earlier ones, actually, I ran into, which are experimental, that are still popular today, are things like the ZVEX Fuzz Factory. Now, these are self-oscillating fuzzes, meaning you could dial in some sounds that actually will make them scream, and you could tune them to certain pitches. They interact with your guitar in really interesting ways, produce anything from low octave sounds to even Octavia, and it's a really cool sort of battle between guitar and fuzz. Another one at that time was the Red Witch Fuzz God, and they're all the way up to Fuzz God 4, and that actually gives you a lot of the fuzz characteristics we've talked about, like octave up, which is foot switchable, and all kinds of different tonal settings that you can adjust with the dip switch bank inside. Let's take a look at an oscillating fuzz. This one's the Sputnik 3 from Spaceman Effects, and I've demoed this one, so if you want to check out the full demo, you could see the full range of its capabilities. But I just want to show you how tuning an oscillation to the key you're playing can be really helpful. It's not just this annoying siren in the background. Well, there's a general look at fuzz from classic to chaotic, and hopefully that sort of points you in the right direction in your fuzz search. Of course, you can find all the fuzz pedals you heard today right here on Reverb. Also, leave some comments below on your favorite fuzz and help some others out in their search. Thanks for watching.